All right, welcome everybody to the August 27th, 2025 regular council meeting. And I'd like to start by respectfully acknowledging that the land on which we're gathered is the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. And I'm now going to pass it over to Councillor Hillian for a memorial.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge the recent passing of Harry Holland, a dedicated citizen of Courtenay and a good friend to many in the Comox Valley. Harry moved to the Valley 53 years ago and operated a laundromat while starting his real estate career. For many years, he was a proud owner of Holland and Associates Realty on the corner of Cliff Avenue and 6th, and could be seen running out of his office when the fire alarm sounded to stop traffic for fire trucks at the nearby intersection at the Nanaimo Realty building, where he had also worked for many years. To do business with Harry was to become his friend. Dinner invitations for out-of-town clients were not uncommon. He distributed realty calendars to half the Comox Valley and was eager to lend a hand wherever he could. One of his greatest satisfactions was enabling people to find a home that was the right fit for them. Harry had a deep commitment to the Comox Valley and was involved in many projects that benefited our community. He was an active member of Rotary and Kinsmen, a valued advisor on the city's planning committee, and most recently, a champion of the 6th Street Bridge. And many of us will remember Harry being here in these chambers on many occasions when that issue was being addressed. As his obituary acknowledges, Harry has passed the torch of community service to those of us who remain. Not only did he always try to see the bright side of things, he actively worked towards making them better. And I'm sure that we all join fellow residents in expressing our condolences to Harry's wife, Marion, and to his family, including his daughter, Erin, who had the good grace to come and join us here today. So I will personally miss Harry, as I know many people will. And I want to thank his family for the many years of service that he provided to our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Hillian, for writing that and presenting it tonight. And as you mentioned, he was just a beacon in our community. I met him at a Rotary meeting about 20 odd years ago when he was coming to pitch the idea of the bridge. And for a period, our club was very involved in it. And yeah, it was definitely sad, but I feel grateful for having met him and having discussions specifically around the 6th Street Bridge, I think, and our community. Much appreciated. And next we have Councillor Morin has a proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a proclamation for International Overdose Awareness Day. And we often refer to this day as Toxic Drug Awareness Day because I like to mention that many family members don't like the word overdose because really the deaths are from toxic drugs and not intentionally or otherwise taking too much of a substance. The proclamation reads as, whereas International Overdose Awareness Day is a global event with the purpose of remembering loved ones lost to overdose, the drug toxicity crisis, and ending the stigma of drug-related deaths, and whereas IOAD highlights that in 2024 alone, 33 community members lost their lives, with a total now of 220 deaths in the Comox Valley since the public health emergency was declared in 2016, leaving behind countless friends, family, and loved ones left to grieve. And whereas the City of Courtenay affirms and acknowledges the harm and hardship caused by drug overdose and the drug toxicity crisis, and through IOAD, we send a strong message to substance users that they are valued and that the community is working to mitigate harms and impacts of the toxic drug supply. And whereas we support those who use substances by urging government and health decision makers to create evidence-based policies and wide access to treatments. And whereas we affirm that the people affected by overdose and the drug toxicity crisis are our children, our parents, our siblings, and deserving of our love, compassion, and support. And whereas through IOAD, we wish to prevent deaths due to the toxic drug supply and stimulate discussion in Courtenay about overdose prevention and share information on services available to our community. Now, therefore, I, Acting Mayor Morin, as well as Mayor Wells and Council, hereby proclaim August 31st, 2025 as International Overdose Awareness Day in Courtenay, BC. And I just wanted to say one thing, and that is that I've personally been impacted by this crisis. I've lost several people close to me, and I know many people around this table have had the same experience or have loved ones, families, friends, even colleagues who struggle with substance use. So thank you, and I hope that people will take advantage of perhaps going down to the art gallery this Friday. I believe the event starts around 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morin. And I have Councillor McCollum with another proclamation.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to read a proclamation related to Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder Awareness Day on September 9th. Whereas fetal alcohol spectrum disorder is a serious condition caused by alcohol exposure during pregnancy, leading to lifelong physical, behavioral, and cognitive impairments. And whereas FASD is a significant public health concern affecting thousands of individuals and families each year, and awareness is crucial to prevention and early intervention. And whereas education and awareness about FASD are essential for preventing alcohol consumption during pregnancy and supporting those impacted by this disorder. And whereas it is vital to advocate for comprehensive supportive systems, effective interventions, and research efforts to better understand and address FASD. Therefore, the City of Courtenay hereby proclaims September 9th, 2025 as Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder Day in Courtenay.
Thank you, Councillor McCollum. Appreciate that. And we have no late items that I'm aware of, so we'll move into the adoption of our regular minutes from July 30th. Are there any errors or omission? Seeing none, errors or omissions, errors or corrections. Wrong meeting. I see none. We'll accept our regular council meetings as presented unanimously, and we'll move into our delegation. And we have the Youth Climate Corps of BC. And so if you guys like to approach the podium there, and I can probably even get that fired up for you. There we go. It's turned on. So if you guys like to introduce yourselves, oh, I'll turn it back, or if you push it again, then I can turn it back on for you. Once it turns red, you're all good to go. All right.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Wells and Council. We just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to speak before you today. My name is Maddie Turen, and I'm the program coordinator for the Courtenay team of the Youth Climate Corps BC. And today I'm joined with Mikasa and Jesse. Mikasa is our program lead, and Jesse is one of our community climate action mobilizers. We also just want to say thank you for making the decision to support our program and allow us to do the work that we do. And just extend a big thank you to Janine as well, who has been working very closely with us. So we just want to say thank you for your advocacy, guidance, and support just over these last few months. So a little bit about us. We're part of a province-wide initiative that pays youth a living wage to support local climate action projects while setting up young people with the tools that they need for a successful career in the climate sector. So our presentation today will provide an overview of the team's contributions to the community over the past few months. Specifically, we're going to touch on urban agriculture and environmental restoration. We're also going to highlight just why having a team of young people dedicated to climate action matters so much here in Courtenay. One of the main project areas that our team has been focusing on this summer, as I said, is urban agriculture and food security. We've been working really closely with Lush Valley, and some of the work that we've done includes farm gleans, fruit picks on private property, as well as working in both of their local community gardens. This partnership has expanded Lush's staff capacity over the summer to allow for increased project activity while also giving youth tools for a possible future career in agriculture and food security. We've also been working really closely with the Lake Trail Community Education Society. And so what we've kind of been focusing on is creating a reimagined garden space for community members, students to enjoy in a once underutilized space. And so for me, following plants from seed to table has really been a highlight. We've planted vegetables in the early summer and kind of followed them from seed to table, and then served it at a local community garden dinner recently. So that's been kind of a full circle moment for me at this partner location.
Another area that we've focused on is ecosystem restoration. Through our partnership with Project Watershed, we've participated in replacing invasive species with natives at the Courtenay Air Park and Kuskusum sites that Project Watershed has been stewarding. This work has turned two extremely degraded areas into thriving functional ecosystems that provide habitat for many species, as well as some ecosystem services, such as flood control, water filtration, and erosion protection. We're also monitoring local stream health with Project Watershed and other local streamkeeper groups. And we are establishing stream health and the baseline of the stream health to support data-driven decision-making in our local watersheds. We've also been doing weekly monitoring at Morrison Creek headwaters. This is a BC Parks Foundation site, and we've deployed some trail cams and audio recording units. And we've also been tracking the biodiversity of plants and invertebrates at the site, as well as the public usage of the site. We've mapped the invasive species distribution throughout the site to inform future removal projects, and we actually removed 270 kilograms of Scotch broom in a single morning in a pilot project to just see how effective that mapping was. So there's a lot more to be removed, but that's just speaks to the success of the work that we've been doing and how much more impact we can have. This slide has a few other stats that gives you an idea of some of the impact that we've had this summer. The 175 days of climate action, an updated figure is 250 as of August 25th. And we've also deployed 3 trail cams, 2 audio recording units, and picked a bunch more fruit, but we only have the data from the first 9 weeks of the program, which was up to July 18th. A big part of our impact has, of course, also been on the youth we employ, so I will let Jesse speak to his own experience.
Yeah. As a young person who came to YCCBC, not just to do good work in my community, but also to gain experiences and make myself more employable, I think it's super valuable that we've gotten to be able to work with so many different organizations, then from that learn a bunch of different skills. The relationships that we form with the people in these organizations aren't just helpful for the work we're doing today, but could serve to impact us well beyond our time at YCC. Being able to work on complex tasks, come up with ideas, and just be involved earlier on in the project design phase when it comes to maybe our outreach strategies or the projects that we're working on with the city has been super important for me as someone who wants to work more in project development and design going forward with my career. I am incredibly appreciative of YCC for just providing this opportunity and also doing a lot to tailor this experience to each of our individual needs. They've been super committed to making sure that we're getting the most out of our time here. And yeah, for that, I'm very thankful.
So after all that we've achieved this year, we want to present an idea of what a continued presence of YCCBC in the Comox Valley could look like. Virtually all of our community partners have expressed interest in continuing to work with YCCBC in the future. And we also are continuing to receive interest from other local groups that would like to work with us. We've also started a number of new projects that we would love to continue past this season, including a climate action book club. And we've also started an invasives removal service for properties that back onto municipal parks. In order to carry on this work, we would rely on the ongoing support of our local governments. So you guys, and also we're hoping to have support of the CBRD, the Comox government, and the town of Cumberland. And on this slide, we've provided some ideas of some of the impact that we could have in the community. And there's also an insert your ideas here spot as well, because if you have any ideas of how we could help make a more climate resilient community, we would love to implement them. We look forward to reaching even more of the community, deepening our impact, and inspiring the kind of cultural and environmental shifts we need for a more sustainable future. Our summer of impactful environmental work has strengthened our community and equipped our team with an abundance of skills to support a rewarding career in climate action and build more resilient communities. So thank you again for listening to us speak and welcoming YCCBC into the community. Thank you for entrusting us with the opportunity to make our impact felt. And thank you again, Janine, for working so hard to get this program going, and Courtney. We look forward to any questions.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for the presentation and the work that you've done in our community. I think many of our council members have supported organizations like Lush and Project Watershed. So it's great to see that work being taken to the next level, and obviously we'll be here for generations to basically appreciate. But with that, I'm going to pass it over to Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mayor, and thanks for the presentation. It's a great list of accomplishments over this side of the project. Maybe you could just remind me what the grant was that we provided for you. I can't remember what the number was, and sort of how many people you guys employed, or yeah, looking over there, that's fire.
All right.
Yeah, how many people you guys worked with in this particular program?
I can speak to the number of people that we've worked with. So we had a team of 3 climate action mobilizers, and then Maddie and myself as well. So we were a team of 5. I know that the total number that we used to operate was around $130,000. And I believe Janine will have the number that Courtney provided.
Thank you.
Yes, of that total $130,000 to operate, the city provided $65,000, which was through the local government climate action plan, which is funded by the province. So fully funded grant program that we were able to leverage other grants as well.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for the info and congrats.
Excellent. So for the city, it's just a flow through basically. So
we receive grant money from the province annually for climate action specifically, and then we decide how to best allocate that to our priorities. And so a portion of what we've decided to support this year was the pilot year for the Youth Climate Corps.
fantastic. Thanks so much. All right. And we have Councillor Moore.
Thanks, Mayor. I worked with young people for many years, and I always felt that we really got our money's worth, because young people, we all work hard, but I think young people bring a enthusiasm and a work ethic that can be, yeah, quite impressive. And when I look at all the things that you've been accomplishing this summer, it's amazing. So thank you. A couple quick questions. The trail cams, have you been capturing any wildlife? That was my question. Any cougars?
We haven't captured cougars, but we did capture a couple of bears.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always fun to see those trail cams when you see these curious critters in front of the camera. And then my other question was around the book club. I was intrigued and perhaps interested in that. And you've had one meeting, I believe, and
The first meeting will be September 2nd.
Oh, okay. So, and people are just showing up, so there's not a sign up ahead of time, so you don't know how many people are gonna show up. Okay, great, thank you.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Councillor Moran and Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks very much for being here. Part of the idea when we brought this program forward with for the city to sponsor was to give younger people an opportunity to be involved in doing something about the climate crisis. We all worry about it, but one of the ways of addressing that anxiety is to actually get involved and do something. And I'm very impressed with everything that you've done this summer. I would like to ask staff a question related to your last slide, and that's what are our prospects for carrying this program on in summers to come, if not other parts of the year?
Great question. Staff are proposing that we continue the program. Like I said, we receive provincial funding through the government climate action plan. So we are proposing to continue supporting YCC. But we acknowledge that the work of YCC is within our community, and our community is beyond our municipal boundary. And I think that shows with the partnerships that YCC has forged. And so it would be great to see support from some other local governments as well, and to see how far we can take this climate action on the ground and really approach this in a unified way.
It almost sounds like we need a motion to send a letter to the other local governments and maybe Comox First Nation as well, to let them to know about the fantastic work that's been done. I'm not sure how much. I mean, you're doing a great job, just so you know, presenting to us today, but opportunities to present to the other councils and again, it's always nice when the stuff that we're doing when we talk about Project Watershed or Lush, these are Comox Valley wide organizations, and the work you're doing is definitely benefiting the entire valley. So I definitely look forward to seeing a letter that we can send off to our counterparts and see if we can't get, if not more funding, at least more engagement from all local governments here in the Comox Valley. So much appreciate the comment on that, Janine.
That's our goal too.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Do you guys have any meetings or anything with the other governments?
We do, yeah.
Excellent. Awesome. That's fantastic. I don't see any further questions or comments. So with that, we'll let you guys go. You can stay and watch the rest of the meeting, but given what you've presented tonight, you guys have been very productive and you deserve to be able to leave if you'd like to. And with that, we're going to move on to our next item. So thanks again. We'll move on to presentation on the Comox Valley Tourism Strategy Framework Draft. And I think Tanya's here and Kaylin maybe. And it looks like there's, oh, Lisa as well. Okay. And I'm just gonna do. All right, and I've turned the podium mic on for you.
Yeah,
So,
great.
yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, good evening, everyone. As many of you know, my name is Lisa Kilpatrick. I'm with the CVRD and I am the Manager of Community Development and Resilience, but I also oversee the Tourism Service. So the Tourism Service was created in 2021 to provide destination marketing and tourism information services to the region. When the service was created and once we got our legs under us, the board directed staff to develop a regional tourism strategy that would build the foundation and roadmap for the service for the next 10 years. 4VI, which is now Forever Strategies, has been administering Experience Comox Valley, which is the brand name for the service, since 2021. You're familiar with their annual presentations and reports on the MRDT. The team's been hard at work on the development of the draft Comox Valley Tourism Strategic Framework, and we're here today to present the draft framework to you for feedback as we are in the final public engagement process. I'll turn it over to Callum Matthews, who's president of Forever Strategies, and Tanya Massa, who is our local Experience Comox Valley Tourism Development Specialist.
Thanks so much, Lisa. So first, I just wanted to acknowledge that we are grateful to be here today on the traditional and unceded territory of Comox First Nation. And as Lisa mentioned, we've been in the works now for about the last 18 months developing this 10-year tourism strategy plan, which will serve as the roadmap for sustainable tourism development, supporting economic growth, environmental and social well-being for our region. The tourism service does include the 3 municipalities as well as electoral areas, not including Denman Island and Hornby Island, though we do work with them as well. Over the past 18 months or so, a lot of engagement has gone into this planning process. We did establish a tourism strategy steering committee that includes members, representatives of traditional tourism businesses such as accommodations, hospitality, food and beverage, transportation, arts and culture, but also some maybe non-traditional in the tourism side of things such as education, community and environmental groups and NGOs. The Tourism Advisory Committee, which was established in 2022, has also been engaged throughout this entire process and has reviewed our draft strategic framework. We have a virtual community engagement page through the engagecomoxvalley.ca where any member of the public, residents or whoever can go on and learn more information about the work that's being done as well as leave comments and feedback. Last year, we also did a number of engagement sessions and workshops, as well as local government staff sessions, elected officials forum workshop. We did a number of targeted engagements, including one-on-one interviews and focus group conversations, and have engaged with Comox Economic Development Corporation and with the CAOs from Courtenay, Comox, Cumberland, and Comox First Nation. So following is going to be an overview of what we have heard throughout this process and throughout all these engagements, which I will pass it over to Callum.
Perfect. Thanks, Tanya. So I know that some of you have had this presentation delivered to you already at the regional district. Understand it's been shared in advance as well. So going to move through a little bit more quickly than perhaps we did at the regional district setting, but lots of time for questions as well after. So starting with the vision, the Comox Valley is a sustainable island destination that enriches the lives of residents now and for future generations. Environmental stewardship, culture, regional collaboration, and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples creates a resilient and thriving tourism network that is home to exceptional year-round experiences that tell the stories of the Comox Valley. I think for our team and our steering committee, the real focus of the vision was setting something that was, inspiring, also aspirational, but also high enough level that it would resonate with all of the communities in the Comox Valley, rather than getting so specific that maybe pointed to certain communities and not others. So really trying to strike that balance of it being a regional strategy. We developed a set of guiding principles early in the process with the guidance of our steering committee, as well as during some of the in-person engagement sessions that Tanya spoke to earlier. The primary components from a guiding principle perspective, first, collaboration. I think over the past 5 years, we've seen that as the tourism industry has been working in a much more collaborative way, that we're way more effective. So wanting to establish and work towards that common goal together as kind of a network of tourism businesses and organizations that are either directly in tourism or sort of adjacent to it. Next, we heard really clearly that reconciliation in the context of tourism is critical for the Comox Valley's success over the long term. The idea of harmony was another kind of really key theme that we heard from the community, trying to embrace this notion of reciprocity to ensure that tourism is enriching the lives of locals and also those who come here as visitors. Resilience was another key piece. I think coming out of the pandemic, we heard so much about that word, and in the face of a changing climate, changing social economic factors, it was also really clear to us that we need to maintain that resilience as a community, as an industry. And finally, tourism is funded with a variety of different kind of public tax dollar sources, and it's critical that the tourism service and the tourism industry as a whole is acting with integrity, respect, and transparency, because tourism really does affect every community member. So ensuring that openness and transparency is kind of a key component of the plan was another thing that we heard loud and clear during our engagements and from our steering committee in particular. Next, I'll move into the strategic themes for the plan. There are 5 themes. We have work together, strengthen stewardship of place, empower a resilient and inclusive tourism economy, support connected communities and tourism infrastructure, and last of all, and in no particular order, enhance year-round experiences for everyone. As you'll see, we have goals, objectives that flow from this. We also have actions. For the sake of this not being a never-ending presentation, we haven't built in the actions. But this will show a kind of a high-level overview. So from the perspective of working together, it's really, I think related to, even some of the kind of the guiding principles and this idea of working together in collaboration, building partnerships across the tourism sector and also outside of the tourism sector where it makes sense, and engaging with communities frequently to understand the benefits as well as, of course, the challenges that tourism is causing on a more local level. And when it comes to this, working together, some of the actions, as a few kind of initial examples, there's a really big focus on kind of internal external collaboration. That was a major point of discussion when we met with staff from the regional district and other local governments. How can we have, bylaw, for example, and tourism working more hand in hand and sharing information? Another component in terms of working together was trying to help advance educational and awareness content in partnership with Comox First Nation, and as a tourism organization, doing a better job of kind of helping to amplify that story and amplify awareness of whose territory visitors are spending time on. Next, we have strengthen stewardship of place. And this one is really, like, I think, put in the simplest terms, it's taking care of the Comox Valley and taking care of one another. And for us, some key goals, engaging residents and visitors in education, and trying to have that done in a really participatory way, implementing responsible and regenerative actions, trying to build a tourism economy and tourism industry that is more circular and brings greater and deeper benefits for local residents. A couple of potential project examples that are built into the actions. I think one that we've heard loud and clear is more support for tourism operators, helping to guide them when it comes to creating a more regenerative experience in their business. They, might be experts at delivering the experience they have, but need some support when it comes to perhaps it's, carbon emission reduction, perhaps it's strategies to increase worker wages or benefits. And we've seen success with similar programs in other communities and know that that would be valuable here as well. Next, we have empower a resilient and inclusive tourism economy. The goals flowing from this one are focused on having a more year-round tourism economy that's attracting, continued investment and, good local jobs, positioning tourism businesses and organizations as vital contributors to the region's economy, culture, environment, quality of life, and supporting inclusive and accessible communities and recognizing the power that tourism can have to help create more inclusive and accessible spaces for residents and visitors alike. And then the objectives flowing from there, as you can see. A couple of kind of components flowing from this in terms of actions. We see a real need to continue doing survey work with residents to understand general sentiment around tourism as an industry, better understanding where the pain and pressure points are and how we can address them. Continuing to do similar programs with businesses to ensure that investment in programs is targeted and beneficial to them. And then there's a fairly significant focus as well on the plan in terms of kind of inclusivity and accessibility, looking to fund accessibility audits to help tourism business owners enhance their spaces to make them more inclusive and accessible as a couple of examples. Next, we have support connected communities and tourism infrastructure. A really big component of this plan during the early stages was identifying some of the longer term investment needs that the Comox Valley has, whether it's increasing the availability of accommodation properties for visitors, creating new experiences or investing in other related infrastructure, trails, etc. The focus here, one of the goals is really around that transportation network, whether that's public transportation, active transportation, kind of two major focus areas. The next goal is around investing in tourism infrastructure. I think that I live in Nanaimo, and I know that a lot of the experiences that I enjoy when it comes to public infrastructure are things that visitors also enjoy. Trying to dive into that thought of how we can make a place a better place to be a resident, and also a better place to come and visit. And a couple of projects, low carbon transportation options is a really key component of the plan. Increased Wi-Fi connectivity is something that we know from our research is a big priority, especially for visitors and guests that might not have mobile phones with data. I spoke already to the need for more accommodation in the regional district. We've heard a lot from our partners about the need for workforce housing, and also some challenges around access points for popular recreation areas. Not enough parking, not enough washrooms, and other related services. And then also really trying to better manage what trails and what recreational assets we're promoting that are able to handle increased numbers of users, and which ones are kind of at capacity and shouldn't be promoted to the traveling public. And last but not least, we have enhanced year-round experiences for everyone. And that's really focused on supporting the growth of a vibrant and sustainable broader community in the Comox Valley. That great place to live is a great place to visit mindset, and really trying to have exceptional and unique experiences that can be offered year round. I think, it's no surprise that essentially every community in British Columbia has seasonality challenges when it comes to tourism. And that creates challenges for tourism workers with layoffs. And we really identified a need to leverage some of the unique assets the Comox Valley has to be a more year-round destination. We're really fortunate to have experiences from sea to mountain, and it's fairly unique on Vancouver Island and even in BC to be able to do that. So see a huge amount of opportunity there to extend seasonality, and with it, employment opportunities for people, and the general economic and cultural benefits that result from tourism. Some of the actions built out there around itinerary and trip building tools to help encourage and even incentivize visitors to plan trips at in the fall and spring and in the winter when they might not typically be planning to come here. An investment in market research to better understand what sorts of experiences visitors within our target market are really looking for, so that we can help operators be more informed with investments that they might be making. Continue to monitor visitor satisfaction and be able to have kind of actionable insights resulting from that. And last but not least, continuing to iterate on the visitor services model. We're fortunate to be able to operate out of the space right now, but we know that there are other opportunities we've tested and are continuing to implement this summer around more mobile visitor servicing, meeting visitors where they're at, increasing online visitor servicing content, essentially trying to steer more people to spend more time in the Comox Valley and spend more money here to kind of increase the benefits of their time. In terms of next steps, a couple of these are already underway or actioned. We have a survey that is live. It's getting feedback from the general public on the plan. We've got lots of really great feedback already, and that will be open for another couple of weeks. We've distributed a press release, and emailed has gone out to all of the engagement participants who've been involved throughout the duration of this project over the last nearly 2 years now. Presentations to councils. We will be hosting a series of community open houses, essentially drop-in sessions. Come for a cookie and hang out for 5 minutes, or spend a full hour and a half if you want. Really trying to be flexible and meet people where they're at. And then we'll be moving to have a review and endorsement of the final draft by the project steering committee. That will then move into a presentation of the final draft to the regional district board in the fall. And upon final approval, and I think this is kind of a really important component to underscore, the tourism strategy will be used to heavily inform the development of the 2026 budget and work plan, and the development of a 5-year MRDT business plan. we have a kind of unique opportunity here. This is a 10-year plan. And, I think for anyone who's worked on a plan that goes beyond 5 years, when you start setting really specific KPIs and actions within a year or two, you're like, why did we put this one in here? So the MRDT essentially requires us to renew that every 5 years. And because of the timing of the MRDT renewal here in the Comox Valley, we really believe that we can be most effective in implementing this plan in a way that's a little bit more flexible. So we'll be able to build in, essentially how we can bring this plan to life from an action and KPI perspective within this 5-year plan that we're just about to start working on for MRDT. We'll also have to develop a 1-year tactical plan. So that will show specific budget investments for year 1 for how we're moving this strategy along. And then once that 5-year plan is up, we'll be able to again revisit that 5-year plan and develop a new one for how we can advance kind of the final 5-year window of the strategy that I just presented here today. So it's perhaps a little bit of a different approach, but I think it's one that we're really fortunate to be able to do with the timing of the MRDT. And I think from the perspective of Tanya and the rest of the team that will be heavily involved in implementing this strategy, it really allows things to be a little bit flexible, enable us to make targeted year-over-year investments, but also have kind of the guiding light of this broader 10-year strategy to provide really solid direction. And I think the last thing I was going to mention is that it has been a pretty lengthy planning process, and a big reason for that is engagement. And I think we've all found that the kind of nature of public engagement has changed over the past few years, and that community members and certainly tourism operators are much more interested in getting involved in ways that they weren't previously. So we were fortunate through this process to have the flexibility to be able to slow down the process a little bit and really have a huge amount of engagement and hear from tons of people. And I think one mention that I'll make that was definitely a highlight for me, we had a workshop that was attended by almost 100 people. We had tourism operators and we had community members. We had students from the university, and we even had seniors who heard about the ad and arranged a bus to come and get dropped off. So it was really amazing to have business people, retirees, young people, people that are in tourism, people that were born and raised in the Comox Valley and had lived here for over 50 years. And also people, there was someone who showed up who only moved to the Valley, a couple of months prior to that and just wanted to try to understand what the Valley was about and get involved. So I'd like to think that the kind of engagement that we've seen will kind of continue through this. We've got, I think, really broad buy-in in this plan. And I think it's really our job to kind of continue that momentum through the implementation stage.
Any questions? All right, thanks so much for your presentation today, and I don't see any lights on, so maybe I do. I'll pass it over to Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. Just briefly, second time hearing the presentation, but I do appreciate the work that you're doing. And I want to acknowledge that I've had 5 groups of visitors staying with me this summer. And while they've been certainly patronizing all our food and beverage locations, they've taken advantage of all the incredible places that we have to go. And I was particularly taken with your comments about transportation and the concerns you've heard from people about the numbers of people that are using some of our top destinations, places like Nymph Falls, and as well as tubing down the river. And I just wonder whether there's a business opportunity there for a shuttle service, and whether you heard any talk of that possibility. It just seems to make sense to me, running into lots of people who have to park their car up at the fish hatchery and then have another vehicle down at Anderton Road so they can shuttle back and forth. There must be a better way of doing that.
Yeah, and I think that we definitely heard about kind of the need for a shuttle service through the planning process. It was a point of discussion for our steering committee in particular. We're not at the stage where we have like any particular party that it's expressed, specific interest in that business opportunity. But I think it's certainly there. I went for a brief walk along the Puntledge and saw all of the tubers this afternoon. And I think we've also seen a model in the Lake Cowichan area that I think is generally positive for the community. Certainly has some environmental challenges that the community needs to rally around. But I think whether it's the shuttle or we also heard about kind of other interesting business opportunities, not jumping to my mind right off the bat through this planning process, but I think that's something that we can definitely advocate for and try to see what opportunities might be there. We also heard about shuttle opportunities when it comes to mountain biking, for example.
Fantastic. I just took my family to Cowichan yesterday, so it was going to be one of my questions actually today. Because yeah, I mean it's a pretty painless way, and we take our kids tubing here as well, and that difference is quite stark for sure. Councillor Frisch.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, in addition to the idea of tubing and mountain biking, there are a lot of places in the valley. It would be pretty amazing if there was access through shuttle services. I know people using taxis and such to get around, and not necessarily the cheapest option. And the bus that Comox has used, I don't know how successful it was, but it's certainly, I think, a winning idea in my mind of, like you said, it wouldn't just be for tourists. I think local people would also love to travel around a little more easily in the summer months. And I'm really just going to share these three ideas, if you don't mind. The other one was around food and beverage. And I know I talk about this every time you come. There was a program, and so maybe you can even speak to it. I assume shoulder season is tough for food and beverage businesses and keeping people employed. And so is there any work being done on that front about getting locals out more in the off season and making it more affordable? And the third one is about Airbnb, and if you've seen a lot of effect on prices for accommodations and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so definitely culinary experiences. That's we recognize that as a main pillar of the reason why people come here. Something that we've done in the fall for the past couple of years is the Island Taste Trail, where we partnered with neighboring communities such as Parksville, Qualicum Beach, and Campbell River to really do a targeted campaign around encouraging people to go out and try different pairings that are offered locally. Each year that we've done it here in the Comox Valley, it's grown every single year. So I'm hoping to see the same again this year. In the past, there used to be the Dine Around program, is I think maybe what you're referring to. So that idea has come up a couple of times as well, as something that would be really great to bring back. So if there's an organization that wants to kind of take the lead on that, we do have our Events and Experiences Grant Fund program, which would be an example of an opportunity to take advantage of for funding something like that. But yeah, definitely culinary is always on my mind as well.
Sure. And the Airbnb question about what you're
Yeah.
doing price-wise.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to like Airbnb in general, we're seeing the like average nightly rate of Airbnb units generally increasing. The reason for that is that the number of Airbnb units is decreasing as we see, increased local and provincial government, regulations around those short-term rentals and enforcement in some communities. So, naturally, as the number of available listings decreases, price is increasing as, some travelers are looking to have that sort of accommodation option. And I think, generally speaking, when it comes to Airbnb and those short-term rentals and, the fact that there are these new regulations that are reducing the number of them also connects to that need for increased accommodation options in the Comox Valley that are legal. And because as we see, Airbnb units come offline, that no doubt brings great benefits when it comes to longer term housing options for residents. But of course, it's less accommodation inventory. And that's something that I know some operators are feeling from, they may have guests that come sport fishing and like to stay in this area, maybe Airbnb every summer, and that might be offline now and might change their decision making. So I think from my perspective, it's kind of no big surprises and to be expected. But we definitely need to, I think, as a group of communities in the Comox Valley, look to attract more, formal fixed roof accommodation properties from an investment attraction perspective to ensure that we have enough space to support tourism growth in the Comox Valley.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. And hopefully we can get our construction numbers, well, they're up right now. So hopefully that shows up in the stats, and maybe we can do something about Airbnbs. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Frisch. And maybe I have a slight follow-up on the culinary part of the conversation, because it sounds like there's some interest in maybe even sounded almost like excitement, but I may have misheard you, but it was like, it's a great idea. We have money for it, but somebody else would have to do it. And so, like, to me, it's about execution. Like, how does it get done? So, I guess maybe I'm missing that missing point, because it wouldn't be restaurants doing it. It would be an organization helping facilitate it. So if it's not you guys, who is it that would come in and help facilitate that?
Yeah, so so for events, we don't manage them ourselves or coordinate them ourselves, but we're here to support them. The Island Taste Trail, for example, that's just a campaign. And it's a third party that actually coordinates with the restaurants. So we just need an organization, an event planner who wants to kind of take on that role of actually coordinating, getting the restaurants to sign up and making sure all the logistics are sound. And then, like I said, we have our events and experiences grant, which goes towards events such as that.
So, and I'm not sure there's many people who know that that's even an opportunity out there. So is there an RFP or some kind of process to let people know that there's an opportunity for somebody to do that type of work? Again, I'm just trying to figure out how we get to executing that really at the end of the day.
Yeah, the grant itself, of course, is online, and we've done lots of communications around the grant availability, but we haven't specified exactly which. Like, it's not on us to say who's going to apply or what events are going to apply.
No. Okay. All right. So that helps a little bit for sure. No, okay. Really appreciate that. And I believe we have Councillor Moore. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I actually like the framework and the engagement that's happened and is continuing to go on, and that we're focusing on, excuse me, the overarching framework rather than planning events that maybe only certain people attend. And this is a broader, I think, strategy. So my question was a little bit around, I guess, the sustainability piece. I think you've heard from me before. I'm always about the low impact, even though I love being a tourist and visit places and obviously have an impact. But also try to, to take advantage of opportunities that do kind of celebrate sustainability and hope for more of that here. And the Lake Cowichan example is good. I mean, they have a shuttle. I think it would be great to have a shuttle to cut down on the cars going back and forth, but then I wouldn't personally like to have the impacts that Lake Cowichan has to the extent that they do as well. And I guess that leads me to some of the nuts and bolts of the sustainability piece. I know you said that there would be support for businesses to be more sustainable, but I think even of signage, and this would be a local government thing, but signage about sunscreen in the river and things like that, like those are all pieces, or even businesses that are renting out tubes or whatever, having messaging around that. That's just one example. I'm not just picking on the tubing piece, but there could be that kind of communication and education in all kinds of different, instances. The other thing was around arts and culture and how you've been connecting around that. Some people know that there was just a paleontology symposium here. The mayor was very involved in it. There were 200 people here from as far away as Texas and California. And they obviously ate here and also took in a lot of the natural environment because there were 3 field trips, Trent River, Shelter Point, and Hornby. And there was a big arts component to that as well because there was an art show, et cetera. So I think that was, those are sort of opportunities that we could tap into a little bit more because, again, that provides the educational piece, the sustainability piece around protecting the environment and all of that kind of stuff. So I guess I'm just curious if you have further comment around the arts and culture piece in particular and liaising with those groups like the museum folks who say that tourism has gone way, like their visitors have gone way up in the last while. and I don't know how you're collecting those stats, but
Yeah, no, arts and culture, again, another great destination driver for our area. We do work with the Comox Valley Arts, as well as on our tourism advisory committee. Deborah from the Courtney Museum sits on our advisory committee as well. And we're so fortunate to, be the only community in BC to be able to say we're home to BC's official fossil, which is a really great draw, as well as, their fossil tours that they do draw people worldwide as well. All the murals in downtown Courtney are another great draw. A lot of visitors at our visitor center are asking about where they can go and view public murals and see those kind of things. And yeah, we continue to engage with the arts community. The Central Island Art Studio Tour is going to be coming up this fall. They actually were a successful grant recipient for the Events and Experiences Fund grant this year. So really looking forward to that happening. I believe it's happening early November this year. Yeah. And of course, we have our ongoing events and festivals that draw people around the year. People come to expect certain annual events that happen every single year here. And that's one of the reasons why they book their trips and come. So continuing to offer those is great too.
just one final note. I don't know if all the tourism type businesses knew that there were 200 paleontologists arriving and that was a perhaps untapped opportunity. So I guess just, that communication piece.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
thank
that's
you.
great. That's a great idea.
Thanks very much, Councillor Morin. And as somebody who spent my weekend at a paleontology convention, I did make sure that we connected with the Courtney Downtown Business Association, so they actually were engaged in it for sure. But one of the things that actually, and I get that there's a potentially an environmental impact as people are not necessarily spelunking in caves, but checking for fossils in the riverbeds. But when we look at things like highway signs and signage, so people even know that that's a possibility, is that something that would be facilitated through your organization, or is that something that would be, because I realize Ministry of Transportation would be involved on highways and then obviously the municipality if it's local.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it would be a more, we can be advocates, of course, for where signage would be ideal and needed. But at the end of the day, it's either, like you said, Ministry of Transport or local municipalities or possibly even regional district.
Yeah, because I don't think a lot of people realize that we're basically a worldwide leader in paleontology here. We had the director of the Smithsonian Institute come as part of he was the keynote speaker.
Awesome.
So, and obviously we have the Traskosaurus that has been, Traskosora, that's been named after Mike Trask and his daughter Heather, who found the original one. So it's exciting times right now. So, and I just met with them for about 2 hours this morning. So it's very fresh in my mind, all the stuff we want to do on the marketing side. So thanks, Councillor Morin, for bringing that up. And Councillor McCollum.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thanks for coming today and talking about the strategy. I had just I had one question, but then through the discussion here, of course, a few more things came up, and seeing as I'm going last, I guess I get to ask them all. I had a question just around, this idea of natural spaces and opportunities that we have that are maybe under-recognized by folks out of town, and then also that we have spaces that are pretty much at capacity. And to me, I would say a busy day on the river is actually hitting what I perceive to be capacity, but maybe not a tourism operator or someone that is running a business. The tube rentals have led to a lot less potential waste. I used to see a lot of pop tubes on the side of the river and a lot of waste, and they're renting out a good quality product that goes back to their business. But then the outcome has been it's become a lot more popular, and there's far more people doing it now than there was 5 years ago. So, there's a consequence to that as well. But just even exploring the idea of a shuttle, once we encourage an operator to come in and use a natural resource, and then there's a livelihood and a dependency on that business that they've established, how as decision makers and especially with your organization where you're actively supporting these businesses, how do we determine when something is at over capacity, and how do we address that? I guess I'm hesitant to look for ways to really bring more people into things that are fairly constrained as it is. And I'm wondering if that's an active conversation, and the strategy is how we recognize those things, how we identify them, and then what actions we would take.
Yeah, I think it's a really complicated issue, whether it's say tubing or really, it could even just be general visitation, at what number of visitors on any given day do we feel like we're hitting capacity? And that number would be different for everyone. And it's really, I think it's, realistically the biggest challenge that the tourism industry is facing and will have to kind of navigate. I think our perspective, especially when it comes to recreation on public or private or treaty lands or whatever it might be, is that it really, when it comes to use of those natural assets, it's really the land managers that need to be kind of primarily responsible for kind of managing and dictating use. I think a big part for us is, especially from a marketing perspective, is knowing kind of red light, green light when it comes to promotion. We are pretty active in trying to understand what, say for example, recreational assets are already, kind of at capacity, and if they're at capacity, are there things that we could do to help with that? One example, our organization was involved in some installation of urine diversion outhouses on the way to the top of Mount 5040, because there were some challenges there. And it's a great asset for the Alberni Valley and the island as a whole. And we were able to work with Alpine Club of Canada to figure out some mitigation strategies that really weren't that expensive or that complicated to get put in place. So I think it's really about having the kind of community conversations and working with whoever's responsible for managing the land to understand, are we able to mitigate some of these challenges, or do we need to look at other more aggressive management strategies, not promoting them or talking about them, removing them from maps, removing it from online content that we have control over. So we've talked about all of those various challenges through this planning process. And but I think the reality is that it's going to take so many different partners to be able to navigate whatever issue it might be. We're fortunate to work with Tourism Cowichan, and so the tubing on the river there is a big point of conversation as well. And I've been out for a couple underwater cleanups with the dive club and kind of see some of the challenges that result from that. But then it's also been interesting to see how the communities around Lake Cowichan have tried to rally to try to mitigate some, perhaps not all of those challenges. So yeah, I think it really takes the whole community when it comes to these kind of core issues of potentially too many people at certain times of the year in too many places.
Yeah, and I guess the bigger question around that is just if through this planning work, we're attempting to define or create some kind of way of identifying what we as a community feel that over tourism is or looks like, and then what kind of measures we would take to, maybe recalibrate how we're promoting ourselves. And just the river tubing is such an easy example because, it's in a confined area. It's in the city of Courtenay, you see both ends of it, and, everyone has an opinion on it, and you see some great behavior and some not great behavior. And, it just encapsulates all of the challenges and benefits around tourism and recreation. And I think that's something else I'd want to see in the strategy, is looking at how we address the impacts when things are a little too successful.
Yeah.
So just wanted to put my 2 cents in around that. And then the other quick question I had was just around the art grants, and you were talking about museums, or sorry, murals, and that we've had some successful applicants around the event side of it. But do we do any, is there any grants available for placemaking? I know there was a, I think pretty much a community-led alley mural festival that I think was just organized by a neighborhood that looked to be quite successful. And I'm wondering if there's grants available for that type of thing, like, yeah, public art, etc.
Yeah, our only, for Experience Comox Valley, our only grant program is the Events and Experiences Fund grant. So it would encompass, yeah, like an event or a festival or a specific experience. So it wouldn't be like to paint the murals or anything like that.
And is there a possibility for looking at maybe broadening that? Is that a pretty well subscribed grant, or is there money that's left over that could maybe be looked at for other types of uses?
Yeah, it's actually fully subscribed this year. It is in our strategy here to look at enhancing or expanding that program, or even introducing similar type programs. So that's something that I'd be really excited about in the future for what other opportunities there might be through this strategy work.
Great.
One
Thanks.
challenge we do have to navigate when it comes to that is the MRDT guidelines of eligible uses of the money. Now we can be clever about that because there's more than just MRDT funds. So we love to be clever and strategize for how we can maximize impact. But that was kind of why it was structured in that way originally. But like Tanya says, we definitely want to dig into that and see if we can broaden it. And I think also like increase the amount of funding, because it's been, you know, pretty well oversubscribed. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's great to know. Thanks for sharing that.
Excellent. Thanks, Councillor McCollum. And I don't see any other questions. I maybe had one question, just because you had mentioned the usage of the visitor center, and it almost sounded like there was a bit of a question mark. And I know many years ago it sounded like its days were possibly rapidly not going to be around. And again, the idea of pop-ups seemed to be quite embraced by, I think, most elected officials. And so glad to hear that that's starting up. But just wondered if there's a strategy there, or any kind of roadmap on the future of the visitor center and those pop-ups.
Yeah, so I think as far as we're aware, that we're continuing to operate the visitor center, but also be more flexible and have the mobile visitor servicing also happening. I know that we've got our mobile visitor service team kind of working in a couple of different areas throughout the community, you know, along the trolley line, going to farmers markets, things like that. So I think right now we're really fortunate that we do have a static location that's really wonderful, and we also are, have adequate funding to be able to do that more mobile visitor servicing, because the research does suggest that the closer to an urban business core of visitors that visitor services are, the more increased spending you see. So I think it would be a bit of a miss if all we were doing was being in the static location. So I think for us, the plan is to continue with doing both. And it also allows us to track data and quality of engagement between the traditional center versus the mobile. And if decisions have to be made in future years around that space, we have data to help support decision making.
That's fantastic. And then my last question, you talked about a Comox Valley MRDT, and so I wasn't sure if there is one now, or if it's still basically the Courtney hotels, although it's used to really support tourism and things throughout the valley. So is it still just the Courtney MRDT?
Yeah, that's correct, Mayor. It's just within the boundaries of the city of Courtney. And we are starting a process to look at the potential of expanding the scope of that to be, the same boundaries as this planning area. And I believe there'll be a future presentation on kind of next steps and what's to come with respect to the future of MRDT.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thanks so much for answering all the questions. Oh, I see Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. I was going to address the recommendation. I think that Lisa's here, and Callum and Tanya have heard the feedback from council, so I think it's sufficient that we just move to receive the Comox Valley Tourism Strategic Framework.
Right. All those in favor? And motion carries. You guys can leave now. So thanks very much. Appreciate your time this evening. All right, from there, we're going to move into staff reports, and we'll start with the downtown revitalization tax exemption, and I'll pass it over to Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you. Through the mayor to council, we have the third of a series of reports on downtown revitalization tax credit. Ms. Goddard is going to introduce the report. I know the applicant is here, and I believe they want to make a representation to council. There's an attachment on the agenda with information and a specific request. So we'll start with Ms. Goddard, and then we can invite the applicant to the podium.
All right, thank you. I have just the briefest of comments about this report before you. It's pretty straightforward. There's for at 574 Cumberland Road, it's a mixed use rental residential, 52 units, as well as some commercial space ground floor. That project, we can see it almost right from these windows here, applying for a revitalization tax exemption. It's in area 2, and so it would be potentially eligible for up to 100% for 5 years of the residential component and 50% of the commercial for the municipal portion of the taxes. This is the first file that we've had, actually, application eligible for midstream construction since new revitalization bylaw amendments were adopted in April. And so that allows for projects such as the one before you to be considered under the bylaw as eligible for in-stream construction. And so the proposal here is to exempt for 45% of the total appreciated estimated value of the project, given the fact that when the application was made, it was 55% complete. And so, and again, council adopted some bylaw provisions earlier this year to recognize those kinds of circumstances may arise and that council may wish to provide that type of exemption in those types of instances for the unconstructed point at the point of time of application. I hope I'm clear in that regard. The total then estimated amount of tax that would be exempted over the 5 years comes into about $134,000, which is scaled to the 45% of constructed value that remained from the point of the application. So I hope that's some helpful comment there. And if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer, or perhaps it makes sense to hear from the delegation first. I'm happy to go either way.
Are there any questions? I think hearing from the delegation might make sense. Is that good? Sean, if you'd like to approach the bench, as it were, or the podium.
Thanks, Mayor Council, for hearing me today. And thanks to staff to putting the report together. We provided you guys all with a lot of information on, the kind of the history on 574. But I think for us, it was important to share our experience from the outset of the program. In around 2018, we were dealing with planning staff at the time on potential development down behind Thrifty Foods at 14th and England. And it was a lengthy process, like it often is. And, we looked at actually building a 6-story condo building, a market condo building there. And through the course of the discussions with staff at the time, it came up that there was going to be a new program for downtown incentivization program, and we get a tax exemption. We looked at that. Wasn't a deciding factor on that project, but we actually changed the project and we went to a 45-unit micro building, which again, we try to listen to council about affordability and, walkability. And that was a big part of us, looking at that property. At that time, it was made very clear, and I want to make sure that I share this with you, that, that was what was shared with the manager of planning at the time was we would build our building, we would get it appraised, we'd split the land and the improvements, and we would get tax exemption on the improvements. And I thought that was great at the time. We were thinking that was really a good thing. And especially if we were going to keep the second phase of the project as a rental building, we could put that into consideration for, the financial model. So we proceeded to build 16 market townhouses and a rental building. You know, the improved values right around 20 million if you look at the assessed values. In that same time period, we looked at another property at 574 Cumberland Road, and we proceeded to make a deal on that property, and we tried our hand at the MLI Select mortgage program that CMHC offers. And, you know, again, you know, lots of back and forth with staff, a lot of back and forth. It was zone land, but, you know, there's a lot of questions on the program that we thought we would want to have with some more micros. We had a consultant working for us at the time, a very, very, you know, very professional consultant. And through that, as we were putting our financial model together with CMHC, I made mention of this program that the city had to offer for tax exemption. He contacted the city, and you know, one of the staff members went through the program with him. At no time through that process was it mentioned that we had to apply a building permit. So we proceeded to put that exemption and an estimate of that exemption in our financial model to our mortgage broker, who passed it along to our bankers, and our financing was in part approved with that, you know, incentive in there. Last June, England Oaks Phase 1 and 2 were coming to completion, and we contacted staff about our application to get our tax exemption for that project. And we were told that we needed to apply at building permit and that we were out of luck. That was very disheartening, to say the least, based on the conversation I'd had with staff. However, we hadn't, I think we just broke ground, or we just were like right near building permit for 574. And this is where it comes in to the package that we provided you guys today. We got on it right away. We engaged with staff, and it was a frustrating process, I must say, and no slight on any individual. I know the staff's all busy, but we didn't find out until January that we got an answer that all of a sudden we were looking at a partial exemption. And so we have, you know, we have an issue with that, guys, because I don't know a developer that I know that builds anywhere that if they knew, you know, we spend months and years going through our approvals with rezonings, with development permits, with building permits, and there's all these boxes that we need to check in order to move things forward with the city. And you know, the development community is quite small here, you know, and there's other people that have had the same experience as us. And we're really hoping that you guys will consider for 574 today that, you know, we did contact staff when that was still a bare lot, asked for guidance, and didn't get the guidance till January. And that is our take on it. Again, you can read the emails and the phone calls. You know, I thank you for some of you. We've talked about this as individually. Thank you for coming, Wendy and Bob and Will, coming to the building and having a tour. It takes a lot, you guys, to do development these days. And, you know, we're a company that wants to do good business with the town, the city, and in the Comox Valley. And, you know, this kind of puts a little bit of a, you know, not a black eye, but it's frustrating that, you know, when we go through all these other steps to bring development to fruition, that this one seems to be left out on a consistent basis. So I'm open for questions. And yeah, thank you for your consideration.
Right, and maybe I'll turn to Councillor. Are there any questions for Sean at this point you might have? Councillor Hillian.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I might have some questions for staff. I just did want to acknowledge how pleased I am to see 574 come to fruition. This is a property that the previous owner wanted to develop you know, a dozen years ago. Had quite an ambitious vision for it. Didn't work out for a variety of reasons, but you've taken it and turned it into something that will provide not only commercial space, but a place for people to live. And I think that that is the development that we want to see in our downtown, where people can live close to where they work and walk to work and to shops and services. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And also, I do recall when you brought forward the England Oaks development with micro units, and that again, it was the idea that there was a shortage at that time of employee housing. There were businesses nearby, supermarkets and whatever, that had people who had challenges finding places to live. And I believe that your project was built with that sort of thing in mind. So I think both of these projects have added value to the community in numerous ways. So I did just want to acknowledge that tonight. Thanks.
So no question. Okay, but you might have some for staff, and so, okay, fair enough. Councillor McCollum.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I read through what you submitted fairly carefully, and I certainly sympathize with the challenge of not having all the information that's needed at the outset, and also running into this with two different projects. We discussed it when we updated the bylaw, that there just needs to be a better chain of communication there. So I'll refrain from repeating what I've said in a past meeting. But one thing that I was curious about in reading this timeline is just that there was concrete information provided about the process and when the application needed to be received, which was in July 2024, when you or your staff was made aware that the micro units had, like, basically the timeline had expired on that because it needed to happen earlier. But then it's still 6 months before the application went into the city for the next project. And that time gap, I couldn't really understand, given that it was, that was the aha moment was sometime in June, July 2024 was the, we haven't got the information we needed, and we needed to have an application in, but then there was still this long delay. And that part I just couldn't really quite pull out of the emails and whatnot that you'd submitted. So I'm just wondering if you have any thing you want to add.
Well, all I can add, Councillor McCollum, is that my staff was trying to get answers out of city staff on what we needed to do, exactly what we needed to do. And, it took the length of time, to January. It was almost 7 months before we could get some actually concrete answers on what we needed to do. And, I've got a CPA working in my office, and she's very proficient. And so it wasn't from a lack of trying. And again, this situation is not a one-off. Like I've the development community talks, and it's this process really shouldn't be this complicated. The two projects that just came recently to you guys for the tax exemption, one of them came directly to you because of conversations that we had with them. Otherwise, they would have done two projects in that catchment area, and they would have missed both opportunities. So, we can always be better on our side for sure. But our thought and the development community's thought is, if council and staff create a program, and they want that program being taken advantage of, there needs to be a better communication way before, as part of those initial conversations that we're having with staff on before we even buy a piece of property. And again, I mentioned it, like the rezoning process is very, very detailed. The development permit process is very detailed, and this gets left out. And it's, I don't know how anybody would access it if, somebody came in from out of town, or someone that wasn't well versed with, development in the local, Courtenay area. It would just get missed. And then people find out about it after the fact, and it leaves a really, really bad taste in their mouths. So, yeah, again, I don't know a builder or developer anywhere in the Comox Valley that wouldn't be all over this if they knew the program existed. And we're certainly one of those.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, the intent of the policy was to encourage development, and the only way that that would work is that if people are aware of the exemption when they're considering a project. So I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We just for councils, and Doug, thank you for mentioning, because I missed it in my notes. We suspect that once 574 is filled, that we'll have about there's 113 doors. And we suspect with the mix and model, there'll probably be close to about 150 people living, in the downtown area, which, is what we heard from council. And we like to listen to what you guys want and then try to navigate a way around it, so that we think that that's the path of least resistance for us for approvals. So.
All right. Thanks for that, Councillor McCollum and Councillor Frisch.
Thanks, Sean. I just want to add my kudos. Like, this is a great building, and I know you try really hard to fill the needs of the community. And like you pointed out, and everyone else, this is exactly what we wanted. I think the commercial on the bottom is amazing, and will make for a very vibrant downtown. When reading through your email sort of timeline, it was mentioned, and I think Councillor McCollum just pointed this out, it was July 17th that the Director of Development had asked you or suggested to you to look up the bylaw. Where was your building at back in July of 24? Like,
we look back, at our building permit, and we would have just been like taking the old house down.
Yeah.
And starting to do the excavation.
Right.
So it was virtually, we'd started, but not actually under construction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's the only question I really have for you. I have some follow-ups with staff, because our bylaw currently, I can't remember if we changed the requirements, but currently I think item H or something says that, I think it was G actually, any construction undertaken prior to the application isn't eligible. So I don't know if that was added in, and I'll find that out from staff, but I don't know if you have any comments on that. Like, that's one of the requirements, of course. And I can understand how you might have misunderstood, but I'm just curious.
Well, I think that we were made aware from staff right when the program was going together.
Mm-hmm.
And, I guess it got finished in another fashion. I do know that there's precedent for council to consider this. There's another project downtown that someone built and found out again late and got a full exemption. So, it's that's my understanding from talking to the gentleman anyway. And so, yeah, I think if council likes this type of thing, I think, there needs to be a conversation with staff so that the staff can talk with anybody that comes in the door that's, whether it's, I don't know all the parameters, but whether it's a fourplex or, a bigger building in the downtown core. So that the development community is not kind of reliant on themselves to try to figure out what's going on with programs at the city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I hear you loud and clear. You don't necessarily want to be misled, but I think from our perspective, we also don't necessarily want to have to be fully responsible for getting everyone through it. But I'm hearing you felt perhaps misled is what you're saying on the timelines necessary.
Yeah.
Is that clear? Okay. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Councillor Frisch. I think any questions I would have had have been answered by the other councillors. You may get recalled back up, but for now, maybe we'll turn the questions over to staff. So if those councillors have staff questions, we'll jump into those now. And we'll start with Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll just follow up with that question. I was curious about the current bylaw, and I guess we had made some amendments recently, but did we change any of the requirements under Section 4 eligibility criteria?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Frisch, through the mayor. Thank you for pointing out that question, and perhaps I could have offered that in the overview of the report. Indeed, so back in 2016, when the revitalization tax exemption program was adopted, we have a provision called 4G, in which it says any construction of a project undertaken prior to the application for revitalization tax exemption will not be eligible for consideration. So that's the historical bylaw. And then in April of this year, amendments were made in which it says, notwithstanding that subsection, an application for a tax exemption may be submitted after building permit issuance in the event that extenuating circumstances exist. And the applicant provided those extenuating circumstances, the file history. And then it just goes on to say all other provisions of this bylaw still shall apply. There was also an addition added, an additional clause that says if a building has received occupancy permit, also known as final inspection, it does not qualify for tax exemption. That was just to be crystal clear and try to, I guess, strike that balance of where we were looking for incenting new development, and I suppose not only rewarding development that already exists. So that's to answer that technical that question about the change in April.
Yeah, thanks for that. And could you also remind me what we provided as an exemption for the property downtown? The other one, it was the Palace Theater site. Did we give a full exemption or did we give a partial for that?
That one, through the mayor, should have been a partial exempt. Yes, indeed. Thank you. Yeah, I'm jogging my memory because we use the exact same process in that one to inform how to capture the status of construction. So the quantity surveyor's report required for Palace Theater site required for this one as well. So it's a similar process. And it's out of the Palace Theater site example where council realized that more detail could be provided in the bylaw to allow that kind of thing to be eligible in bylaw form and not only come at the request through a formal council resolution.
Okay, well, thanks for all that information. I guess just a quick statement is that I feel like we are somehow coming up short of both these very prominent and important developments are somehow not being able to take advantage. Is it a shortcoming in our process, or is it maybe something on the other side? That's what comes to mind for me. So I just thought I'd share that. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Frisch. And Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you. Through the mayor to council, just from a general perspective, I can let you know that we've been concerned a little bit about, quite concerned about communications in that we have an applicable bylaw area with a very clear map. And so Pat, who's joining us today, and I didn't get a chance to introduce you as our incoming acting director, we've had a specific conversation that when development applications are submitted for properties within both areas subject to this bylaw, that the applicants are made aware at the time of their development application. And then we were speaking today, actually, Pat and I had a one-on-one that, coincident with building permit application, if there isn't materials there, we have a flag internally. Staff have advised me that they had been given previous direction. And so we do have, there is past actions, and then now this vitalization tax credit file is here. So I can assure council that it is crystal clear to staff and development services that where with our go forward process as to about a month or so ago, that all properties in this area are made aware at multiple points of this application, the availability, of consideration for this should they wish to move forward on that. So I just wanted to let council know that we recognize there'd been a communication gap previously. And then the steps were taken specifically to address the Palace Theater. I'll just call it the Palace Theater property. And the application in that case details, they made representation to council. Council heard some details there where they had been given some direction specifically related to building permitting timing, and council considered amendments to the bylaw to address where someone would have missed that. But I can assure council that is now crystal clear. And the two new applications that were at our previous council agenda, they submitted, they provided that information that the building of this project predates very clear process changes that we have made. Pardon me. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Garbutt. Maybe it's kind of prompted something for myself and Councillor Frisch and Councillor Hilleen would have been here in 2016, but my recollection was that it was going to be a pretty simple process. And at the same time, there was also discussion that would be checklists, not for this, but checklists in general, so that when a developer came in, they'd get a checklist and they just kind of work through it. And so from that perspective, it seemed, I don't want to use any terms, but it would be simple at the end of the day. And I think, what comes to mind for me, and actually you used the term the quantity surveyor, which I only hear once in a while when I'm working around construction people. And I guess in my mind, when I think about it and when I thought about it back then, and as I'm thinking about it now, we know what that property was getting taxed prior to construction. So we kind of know that value. And so I'm not sure, and it obviously sounds like there might have been some communications just in terms of getting the information out there that it exists and how to use it, those kinds of things. But it sounds like we now have that solved, but I'm still a bit fuzzy on we know what they were taxed prior to any changes. So I don't know, maybe I need a little bit of clarity on that part of it as well. Sorry, it's just a bit of a follow-up on Councillor Frisch.
All right. Thank you for the question to the mayor. So the ultimate tax forgiveness is based on the BC assessed values in the summer. And so indeed, we know before and we know after once it'll be constructed. And really what this bylaw has been structured through, but given from the beginning of its conception, was to incent a development that may not know if it's going to go forward. And so all the language you see is about construction after or application after construction is not eligible, right? So I guess maybe I'm assuming what was in all of our minds in council's direction, but was still, when we made the amendment in April, was still to recognize that there's a point in time at which the applicant comes forward and takes that initiative and prepares the materials, and application actually is made. And so it's not so much about looking backwards, but about projecting forwards. And maybe that's just a philosophical position on how we look at considering future forgiveness of tax. But I think I'd probably want to go back and look at the acts that govern this, but there's probably really, the bylaw could be constructed in a way to accept an application even from the beginning, even if you apply later on. But we have structured a bylaw in the way that we have. So this is the language that staff follow.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's where the disconnect is I think the way it was presented is a simple thing, and in my mind, maybe I'm thinking it's too simple. We know what the cost or value was beforehand, but I really appreciate the feedback on that. So, and I'll pass on to the next councillor, which is Councillor Moore.
Great, thanks, Mayor. I think, I think we've recognized that the process has been not perfect. And I think that this project, as well as some of the others we've seen in downtown, does absolutely meet the intention of that bylaw. And we often talk about, red tape and how we don't want that to, to prevent good things happening. So I guess I'm leaning towards looking, I guess a different recommendation that would consider prior to the initiation of construction, so that the exemption can be given, and then going forward, hoping that the process, as our city manager conveyed, will be kind of tightened up, and we can go forward with people being really well informed. And not to say, we don't know. Lots of emails go back and forth and phone calls and things like that, but I think it's fair. I think it's sincere in that most developers would not want to intentionally not get this exemption, screw up their chances of getting it. So yeah, that's the way I'm leaning. And so we could, if, I don't know how the rest of council feels, but I propose some kind of recommendation that differs from this one to allow the full exemption. Thanks.
Appreciate your comments, Councillor Warren and Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. And what I wanted to ask was of staff was what our options are for problem solving around this issue, and what the potential consequences are one way or the other if we take a different course of action from what's recommended.
Mr. Carpet, I think, has a comment.
Thank you through the mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor. So at a staff level, we've had a couple of conversations about this. So the bylaw is written as prescriptive, and so if council wanted in this instance to not follow the bylaw, we can prepare some language for council's considerations to basically say, I don't want to presuppose any conversation, but should council wish to say that the application be considered in a manner that that it was submitted is considered prior to initiation of construction. With respect to the equitable application of this, the Downtown Revitalization Action Plan is looking at this specific project, or sorry, this specific tax exemption bylaw to either improve or provide options for council to consider going forward, because it was a key component of the downtown playbook. But council may, for those members of council that were involved in its adoption, the staff report that came forward was very small. It didn't really talk about process, how the city would be communicating this, the benefits, constraints, that kind of thing. So I think some more process, which is currently underway in the DVLAP, because this is actually a very common tool that's utilized. It does have taxation implications, but I guess a long way of saying we are in the process of reviewing this now. We can prepare a method to address that. The bylaw is very specific, and it was amended to potentially address this. However, it doesn't address kind of process things or communication that happen between the development community. Ultimately, development downtown, we're seeing the benefits that are happening, and if there are tools available, we as staff understand the direction from the existing community plan and the work that's been happening. And so, we would take council's direction in this regard, and we are going to do a better job of making sure that this is aware and applied for council's consideration.
Excellent. I appreciate that, because again, I think again, casting back, it seemed like it was going to be quite simple, and I'm not sure how many people have applied or have gone through the system, but I wasn't anticipating these kinds of conversations, whether it was with Palace or the ones we've had now, and again, other as Sean mentioned, other developers as well that feel frustrated by this, the sort of the execution, I guess, at the end of the day of how it's actually played out.
My apologies, Mr. Mayor, for interrupting. I didn't complete the thought. I think with respect to the total question from Councillor Hillian, we need to look at each application based on its merits, because there has been applications that people didn't proceed forward. I think it's very clear now there is an opportunity for a partial revitalization. We are reviewing the bylaw. This individual application predates. It's kind of in the interim time where the applicant has provided information that talks about how they were engaged with staff. Casting far back, I don't think we can do that. I think that would not be reasonable. Given the merits of the ones that are in front of us, I think council can give some consideration there, and if council wants to give specific direction on a report back on what our process is, to communicate this exercise, staff would be more than willing to do that and appropriate. But I just wanted to clarify, we have a specific point in time application that has specific details that they've provided. Some of the previous projects, the circumstances may or may not be the same.
Okay, yeah, thanks so much for that. And maybe one question to staff, just because it dawned on me, I'm not sure how many applications there have been made for this. So I don't know if that's an easy answer or not.
Yeah, to the mayor. It is, I believe we're at 7 only right now. It may be 8, but I know it's under 10 for sure.
Okay,
Yeah, so 2016, yeah.
And how many have been successful, like, or completed, I guess?
Yeah, I apologize for not maybe checking those stats ahead of time, but I think there was one that did not come through to fruition, and the rest have been successful.
Okay,
And
thanks so
then this
much.
one is, we're waiting.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I appreciate the information. I'll pass it over. And I believe Councillor Cole Hamilton hasn't spoken yet. So I'll maybe, once I find his number, Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Great, thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to just clarify regarding the precedent at the Palace, whether the recommendation that's suggested here is consistent with that, because I think we want to treat like situations in like fashion. I was wondering if staff could just confirm that. I believe that that's what I've heard overall, but I just wanted to make sure before.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Cole Hamilton. The Palace application resulted in the change in the bylaw to have a midstream consideration. So it is the same in that regard. The information that was presented by the applicants differs in that they had different communication with staff. The Palace was communicated with clearly, timelines, etc. So I want to point out the nuance between those two, but the bylaw amendment was made to consider a building that is under construction, an application made after building permit.
Okay, all right. That's it for me for now.
Thanks, Councillor Cole Hamilton. And Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, just for clarity, you mentioned that we have an opportunity to apply the new amended bylaw to the ones that are in front of us now. Can you just clarify for me how many are in front of us now? Because I see one, and I know we dealt with the Palace. Can you just clarify which ones you're talking about?
Sorry, thank you. Thanks for the question. To go back, we have one application in front of us currently, and this is an application that was made after building permit with supporting documentation around communication. The 2 applications that were considered at the last council meeting, the applications were made prior to building permit application. So the question of partial may or may not be wouldn't have been relevant.
Okay, and then another question just about the percentage that staff is suggesting in the recommendation, and maybe I've got my numbers wrong. It sounded like 40%, or was it 45 or 44.5?
Through Councillor Frisch to through the mayor. We work closely with our finance colleagues on actually crunching the numbers, but the numbers before you are for the 44.5% of construction that had not yet been completed at the time of the application in February of this year.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and I guess the only other question I have, and it's actually not for staff, it's more for council, is are we happy with the staff recommendation, or as Councillor Morin suggested, do we want to send staff back to bring us other options of a different nature than 44.5%? And I'll just throw that out there.
Did you have a preference?
Did I have a preference? Well, I mean, I'm happy to ask staff to come back with some other options. Between 44.5% and 100% for us to consider. Yeah, and I think maybe I'm gonna have to review what happened with the other site, the Palace Theater site, but I mean, it gets complicated because they're different situations. So that's what I'd do if no one else does anything. I'd ask staff to go back and bring us a report at the next meeting to consider this again. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Frisch. I might just reiterate, and I know he just said it, but as Mr. Garbutt commented, they are different in terms of when communications were clear on what to do. And so I think that's a pretty stark difference in terms of when we're doing things. I think what's in front of us is the bylaw is in front of us. This is the technical where things are at. And then I think the question, and I've still got a couple more questions, but I'm going to give it back to council here. But I think just making sure we're solid on where the facts are and if there's any disputes of those facts. Councillor McCollum.
Yeah, thanks. I've taken my time weighing in on this. I wanted to come in with like an open perspective and trying to figure out what makes the most sense given the situation that's in front of us. And to me, the point in time that it was clear that this applicant wanted to address the property tax exemption was when they were provided the news around June 24th about the other building. And that's clear on our side, it's clear on theirs. And then from there, I don't really see the clear communication follow-up that should have led to the city receiving that application in short order. And I think that there's some responsibility on the city for that. And this discussion has made it clear that my guess is that there was also a problem of it was already out of line with what the existing bylaw was, which created a challenge in trying to help the applicant navigate this, and that it probably, wasn't going to be as straightforward as what we have in front of us now. So I think where I would land with this, I mean, looking at the email too, it looks like there was maybe an opportunity on the other side to try and get some clarity. There's references to city staff that haven't worked here in 6 years. There's gray as well, but to me, it was clear that the applicant needed some guidance on the application in June, maybe July at the latest. And then, it took 6 months for whatever reason, but I think in all fairness, based on what we've received, that is actually the date that would make the most amount of sense to me in terms of treating the situation with as much fairness as possible. So I think that's where I would land on this right now. But yeah, it's obviously not very straightforward. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor McCollum. It is a challenge, and especially, but take your comments. Thank you, Councillor Warren.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I appreciate the comments by the rest of council. I do think there was quite a few attempts to get clarity from, and there's staff that are gone now, there's staff that are on leave, there's I think there was some I think there were some valid attempts to try to get clarification. It wasn't this is a different scenario than the palace, like quite different actually. So I'm just still leaning to what I said earlier, and then we work it out with our processes without going to staff for options and reports, because I think that's just tying up staff with that rather than actually working on the efficiency in the processes. Instead of, I think, we make a decision tonight so that these folks who are trying to get this dealt with, they probably have time limits. There was reference to funding, all those kinds of things. So that's just my feeling on it. And leave it at that for now. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Moore. And maybe I have another question. I'm going to interject myself again. My apologies, but to staff. So the question of like simple and all those kinds of things. I guess getting back to that thing, like we know what the value of the property was through BC assessment. I don't know what the tool, like we've said we want this type of construction to go on, and for whatever reason, and I'm just gonna say for whatever reason, an application isn't done, we still know what that value was. We're still getting the types of buildings that we've asked for. So I'm not sure why there's this, hey, if you applied the day after you started construction, now we got to get a quantity surveyor to figure out what moving that dirt changed in the value. And to Councillor Moore's point, like, are we going to go to that detail to try to figure out those kinds of things? So I don't know if that's an easy answer or not, but if you're able to maybe help me understand why that part is in there when it seems that we know all the variables. So sorry, thanks.
Yeah, to the mayor. So I was just opening up the community charter, section 226 is what gives the powers to create these tools. And it is quite open in that it just simply says a municipality can make these powers. They have to create it by bylaw. They can actually do it application by application, but we made a decision in 2016 to create such a bylaw. So and in it, it says, we can create the conditions, we can create the framework, all those kinds of those details. And so I think, but one of the requirements of the charter that informs the bylaw is that it must be clear on the goals that is meaning to achieve and how it will do that. And so the bylaw, if you'll humor me, here's the intent. So the Downtown Revitalization Tax Exemption Program is established under this bylaw in order to promote the revitalization of downtown Courtenay through the development and redevelopment of buildings used for residential purposes to increase the population density in downtown Courtenay to support commercial success. B, the development and redevelopment of commercial buildings to create a vibrant downtown that attracts new investment opportunities and supports increased residential viability. And C, to reinforce and strengthen downtown Courtenay as the commercial heart of the Comox Valley. And then the way it intends to accomplish, it says the program is intended to accomplish the objectives by providing owners with an economic incentive in the form of a tax exemption to undertake the development of new improvements. And so I think, when the bylaw was created nearly 10 years ago, it was recognized and again, this is why I guess I'm using the word philosophical, was that it was conceived to help make that decision of, is this project viable or not? Oh, we're incentivizing it. We're actually helping it get going. And so that information becomes important to the applicant's pro forma. Now, perhaps the applicant assumed, and maybe they already did factor into pro forma, which sounds like was the case here. But I think the intent of the program that the city of Courtenay at the time created was not to necessarily retroactively reward development that is there, that did come to fruition.
And I heard you say that before, and I think that's where my confusion is that the development happened after 2016. How did it happen before 2016? Like the bylaws came in 2016. So any new development after that would be after the bylaw. So we're not so if we, for today, just as an example, we said 100%, we're not doing something for work that was done pre-2016. I guess maybe that's where I'm getting
Sure.
lost.
And to the mayor, I can perhaps clarify, is it on the merits of any one project that it helps to incentivize that one project? Is because not every project will need tax exemption to become viable.
Right.
And so this is where the applicant makes a case for it. They're showing they're meeting certain provisions of the bylaw. I mean, it does not apply to all development. It is the commercial, residential. Those are the goals. And there's actually even additional revitalization tax exemption provision that can be offered, for instance, if they go into a housing agreement. And so the bylaw is clearly trying to steward a certain type of development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's just that where the application has to happen, how that interjects in there. And so I get all the other stuff that kind of explains it, but that part of it, maybe, and I'll just pass on to the next person and hopefully my brain will be able to absorb it a bit better.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And maybe I'll just comment on that line of questioning. I mean, it does make sense that that you have a point in time to look at. You're talking about assessments by BC Assessment, and those numbers, they're a year old, and they're on a specific day. And so I could see how it could be very different. And while you're saying this particular development fits the intent of the bylaw, the reason it's in there is because others might not. There might be situations where work is done and then someone decides to do more work and says, well, why don't we just backdate this to my last BC assessment, you know,
Right.
and I think it is a little more complicated than we wish it was. And for me, the issue really is, you know, are we supporting developers in a way that this bylaw intended? So I just had two questions about this development. I guess it was about the records that Simba Investment had provided us, and I wonder if those records that we were provided match up with staff records. Like, did staff go through Simba Investment's records and say, "Yep, this is what happened," or were we just sent those without that double checking sort of?
Thanks for the question.
Yeah, thanks for the question through the mayor. So staff absolutely did check our records to see if there was an indication of certain, I suppose, decisions from staff or clear direction, et cetera. So I think a challenge with the turnover in staff and searching those emails, et cetera, and they're not always there, was, you know, Simba faithfully constructed the information that we also, the city also has. There's no additional information that the city has on this, I guess, to answer your question very clearly.
Thank you for that. The other question I had was about the exemption in general for any applicant. If we determine that at whatever time we want to determine that there was a certain value on a property was one thing, and then let's say it doubled, is the tax exemption amount for that exact amount? So if it goes up $100,000 or 200, because that's the minimum, I guess, is the tax exemption $200,000 for 5 years? Which I know it's a little technical, and because every year, obviously, that property will increase in value. Do we get to capture that as taxable value, even though they have an exemption?
So
Or are they locked in at the original value?
That's the idea. So the way this revitalization bylaw is created, it essentially freezes your assessed value at your pre-construction cost. So you have a little bungalow, low value, you develop into a high valued apartment. What you're not taxed on is the increase in value of the buildings that you improved. What the actual market value does over the next 5 years, we don't know. In the information here, we give an estimation of what kind of is happening. We go up to what the expected value is, and then we follow what the tax change is in the financial plan that's been adopted by council. So by year 2029, the precise exemption will not match what is seen here. This is an estimation. But what piece you can rely on is that base freeze level of the assessed value. And then so moving into the mayor's question, where we're looking for the quantity surveyor and identifying how much of the building is done, we're doing that because the bylaw prescribes that if you make an application once you start building, we need some sort of number to create your freeze level from. So if we know that the end value is expected to be $20 million and you have completed 45% of work, well, then we'll simply apply 20 million times 45%. That's your freeze value. Anything that grows above 25 or 45% of 20 million is tax exempt. If you would have applied before you constructed, you would have had the assumingly larger exemption.
Thank you. And just to clarify, as the land increases in value through inflation or market values, do we capture any of that in future taxable amounts?
Land is taxable, and there's no exemption on that. So the change in land, the city captures the taxation on that.
It's just the increase in the building.
Just the buildings.
Okay. And would you consider a motion at this time?
I have one blinky light, so maybe we can do the one blinky light, and we've had a pretty fulsome conversation, so we might be getting close to that anyway. So.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to provide some thoughts here. Like the purpose of this bylaw was to incent people to develop in the downtown area and to provide, you know, a literal financial incentive that can get modeled in and make a building more viable than it would otherwise be, and perhaps allow for lower rents to be charged given the overall financial model. And clearly it had that effect. Mr. Vincent thought he was able to avail himself of that, and it went into the financial modeling. The building was built. Like, what happened is exactly what the bylaw would like to see happen. And because of like a range of communications problems over the years with by staff on our end, that we are finding ourselves in a situation where there was a good faith attempt, it would seem, by Simba to try to understand what steps were required. And that was last June. I believe Mr. Vincent said at that point there was essentially no added value on the property, and it was prior to construction. And given that, I think, sometimes one has to look at the spirit of the law rather than the letter of the law. And I think that the spirit of the law would say that 100% exemption was reasonable, given that it did incent this. The building was delivered, and it was always part of the modeling, which led the building to be put into existence. So I have sent a draft motion to Adriana. So I'm happy to move that if I can just read that out. And you can tell me if this covers what we're looking for. City Manager, did you want to speak first? Before
If I may, thanks for drafting something. We were sensing a direction and have some language that would address the way the bylaw is constructed and its timing. So I wasn't totally clear what might have been sent to our corporate officer.
Now.
So we'll.
It's up on the screen now. It's that 1.5 lines. It's that staff take the steps necessary to allow tax exemption certificate for 100% of the increased value of 574 Cumberland Road.
Through the mayor to our corporate officer, perhaps you could share the language that addresses this that we can we believe addresses the way the bylaw is structured.
Okay, the one right below it.
Yeah, and that if I may, the addition to the options presented is that council can accept a downtown revitalization exemption application for 574 Cumberland Road as being considered prior to the initiation of construction and direct staff. So the prior to initiation of construction, Councillor Hamilton addresses take the steps necessary to allow, if council would receive our staff advice on that.
Thanks, City Manager. Given that I haven't actually moved my motion, I just read it out. I'd be happy to move the rather more comprehensive motion that's put together, often putting things together on the slide. So I moved the motion on the screen.
Fair enough. Fair enough. This might have. Yeah. I appreciate it. And the only thing missing out of this, it doesn't say 100%, which actually makes it, I think, that much more clear that that's what we're like. This is, unfortunately, it reminds me of the bylaw in that it's, I don't know whose mic I'm going to end up turning on.
Mr. Garbutt.
Actually,
thank you. Through the mayor to council, that language, the result is 100%. But if council wanted to just reconfirm 100%, we could add that in there. At 100% under the downtown revitalization tax exemption agreement at 100% as amended with, we could add that if council wants to be clear.
Thanks for that. Councillor Cole Hamilton.
My understanding, given the way I read it, is that this simply corrects the date. It was as if correct advice had been given and received, and the application would be made on time, and it would follow that 100% would be the only natural conclusion there. So I don't think we probably need to add it, but
yeah, and I wasn't saying that we have to.
Yeah,
it's just,
but I wanted, it was good to have it asked and answered that that's what this means, and I'm pleased to hear staff confirm that it means exactly 100%.
Thanks.
So, thank you.
All right, we're getting there. Councillor McCollum.
Yeah, I'm happy with where this discussion has moved us to, and supportive of the motion on the screen, and recognizing that this is kind of wrapping up this dialogue on this topic. I just want to circle back to a question around processes in terms of public engagement on this. You know, I don't know if this is the best policy in terms of improving density and development downtown, but this is the only real policy that we have in place. And I want to know that the way that it's being implemented is as effective as possible. And so my question to staff is just if someone comes into downtown and owns a building and it's not even necessarily you know, an application for a rezoning or a development permit, but you know, do we have all of these, like we've got these 2 zones mapped out, and are they flagged that, you know, any engagement on any of these properties gets, you know, information flagged? I'm directing it to our CAO, but anyone can answer.
Yeah, and I think Jeff
Just understanding exactly how that initial contact point is happening now. And I realize there's been problems in the past, and I'm really only asking about current practices.
And that's right, through Councillor McCollum. Indeed, this is indeed our city manager indicated that earlier this year when we realized these communication challenges were arising, and you know, we realized that just simply having a page on the website that's called downtown and the bylaw being on the downtown page was not enough for people to go deep into the bylaw and read the exemption language there. That of course, yes, we have added that as based from the Palace Theatre example, to be honest. So now when our checklists in pre-application settings, the development planning staff are trained to make sure that people are aware of the tool. We do recognize the tool is being evaluated, and so we don't know its future. But through the downtown vitalization local area plan process, then that those options will come before you.
Thanks very much for that. And Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify that I'm happy with the motion, that the way that staff wrote it. And that I don't think we need to put in the number 100%, because I think it's maybe a bit of a misnomer in that it's not really it's not really 100%. It says a portion of its assessment. So I think the language is right there. Thanks.
Thanks so much. And Councillor McCollum had mentioned something, and I look at some of the things we've done in the past on processes, specifically to like the management reports that we get now, and wonder if there's an opportunity, especially because this is something that we want to be successful and want to know how successful it's been. If maybe on, I don't know if in the management reports that come from development services, or maybe its own report once a year or something like that, to say, here's how, you know, how many applications we got, here's how many were successful, that just might help us be able to understand how it's working, especially as you said, it's kind of under review, and, you know, is this the best application of City Council's authority for incentivification? Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you through the mayor. Over the last 4 and a bit years, departments have been doing more and more reporting. We're including information in our annual report that's much more detailed. But departments like overall departments like development services, our corporate services, have been providing updates to council on development activity and the like. And this is clearly again subject to the DVLAP and wherever this ends up. This is a, you know, a critical metric. And with the next council, I think we're going to be looking at our next strategic plan, what our reporting will be, what our key goals will be. And I think, you know, getting really specific on deliverables, you know, if it continues, you know, downtown enhancement and vitalization continues to be a strategic priority, what are indicators that that's happening? Downtown redevelopment, building permits values, property values, et cetera. So I anticipate that our next strategic plan and our next level of reporting will be a little bit more sophisticated, given that we're also have the gift of our housing targets with more enhanced reporting. I think we can build in some good information in that regard. There's been significant level of effort that actually dates back a very long time to support downtown council's investment in the BIA and the like. And so I think it's appropriate for us to stay on top of and track how successful these initiatives have been. And if we need to make changes, make those changes to continue to support that. So just offer that for council's reference. Our reporting has been a work in progress, and we'll continue to do that.
Thanks so much. And final word from Councillor Hillian, then I'll call the question.
Well, thanks, Mayor. I hope it's a final word. The applicant, I certainly support the motion that's on the floor, but I just want to clarify, the applicant also talked about requesting exemption for the England Oaks project. We haven't talked about that at all. Are we working on the assumption that that one's out of luck?
Is that a question to council or staff?
That's a question to whomever may have the answer.
Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I think that was on my mind as well, but I think we cross this bridge and then cross the next one if it's presented to us. That's my perception on it. So, and it may be a different situation with the last building. I don't know.
Right, Mr. Garbutt.
Yeah, thank you. Through the mayor to council, at this point, the matter in front of us is a revitalization tax credit for 574 Cumberland Road. As I commented, the circumstances stretch back significantly. That project is well underway. At a staff level, you've heard our assessment as it relates to this specific file and the specifics. And at this point, the staff recommendation would be to remain here. I'd spoken to sort of like precedent and other files, but of course we would take council's direction. I think the DVLAP work in getting that completed, getting this program updated or get some clear direction from council is, I think, where we should spend our time. It's a wonderful, the second project is a wonderful project. It's a really interesting mix that has a townhouse component and a micro, that the complex itself is very interesting and what we like to see. So those are my thoughts at this point, and council could give us direction. We're addressing the matter on the agenda at this point.
Right, so thanks for bringing that up. What I'm hearing is that would be something that would, if it gets brought forward to council from an applicant or any other applicants, that would be, we'd be considering it case by case, which I think is something that I heard from staff earlier today. So as I promised, I'm going to call the question. Councillor Hillian wasn't necessarily the last word, but I think they were important words. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thanks so much for that. We're at about 6:15. I think this is a bit of a sweet spot, so maybe we'll take a dinner break. That's been a fairly lengthy conversation, and we'll come back at about 6:35. I think 6:35, yeah. All right, thanks everybody. All righty, everybody, we're going to get back onto our agenda. We're on to item 6.2.1, the Truth and Reconciliation Day Parade proposal, and I'll pass it over to Mr. Garvin.
Thank you. Through the mayor to council, the staff report we have with you starting on page 170 provides an overview of the request for approval of a reconciliation parade event. And these options include the temporary closure of 5th Street and the 5th Street Bridge on Tuesday, September 30th from 10 to 12 p.m. The staff report gives an overview of the project itself and some of the financial implications and our strategic priorities reference. We have a series of options in front of council. The recommended option from staff is that council approve the temporary road closure of 5th Street on Tuesday, September 30th, 2025 from 10 to 12 p.m., including the 5th Street Bridge for use by the Mikisew Métis organization.
Move the recommendation.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And motion carries. We'll move into external reports and correspondence. We have the Métis Association request for financial support for September 30th, 2025, Truth and Reconciliation Day for the Spirit Walk. And the agenda does, yeah.
Oh,
Mr. Garvin, did you want to speak to it?
That's okay. Back to you.
Okay, it's been moved. It's been seconded. Any questions or comments? I think it's pretty straightforward. Asking for in-kind support up to $3,500. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And we have the Ombudsman quarterly report. Okay, are there any questions or comments regarding the Ombudsman quarterly report? Just want to thank staff for their great work. These reports come in throughout the year, and in my tenure here for 11, 12 years, our staff have been doing, I think, a great job. And I'll pass it over to Mr. Garvin.
Thank you. Through the mayor council, I don't want to extend this, and it does seem weird to speak to something that really has no implication, but I just wanted to let council know the total number of inquiries. That really has nothing to do with the city's operations itself, but the office of the ombudsperson exists to provide a venue for the public to engage, and I just think it is a valuable tool, and we do our very best to engage if and when we have those items come forward. But I just wanted to acknowledge the ombudsperson's office and the role that they play, and we think at the city it's an important one. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much. And with that, all those in favor? Any opposed? And motion carries. And moving on to the Comox Valley Regional District request for consent of bylaw 883, Comox Valley Sports Track and Field Service Conversion bylaw 2353. Amendment number 2, sorry. Oh, yeah.
Very quickly. Yeah, I just wanted to speak to this briefly, just as the chair of this committee, although it is coming from the board. I just wanted to highlight that this amendment is around Cumberland joining the track and field service. And I just want to recognize that that's been a fairly lengthy process in which initially they were reluctant to join, and their councils come around and join a regional service, which impacts the quality of the facilities that we'll be able to provide in the valley. So I just want to give recognition to Cumberland Council on this. Thanks.
Fantastic. If somebody would like to second that, thanks very much. And I don't think there's any questions or comments around it. Thanks for providing a little bit of context around the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that motion carries. Moving on, the Comox Valley Regional District detour traffic impacts from sewer conveyance project. Excellent. And Councillor Hilling, excellent. I was possibly going to ask you a question, but I'll let you speak first.
Well, thanks, Mayor. We've had some interesting correspondence in relation to this. One correspondent suggested that the response from the Sewage Commission was viewed the concerns as frivolous. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that this was given serious consideration by both staff and the Sewage Commission members. And it was determined that the traffic management plan for the most part was working. The concerns of the residents of Back Road are very real. Measures have been taken that can be taken, and that increased attention would be paid to notification processes where that was applicable. So I think that we've seen today a letter to the editor in the local paper from one of the residents who actually presented to us on this concern last month, Ms. Cheney. And in that letter, she takes issue with somebody who had also written to the paper expressing that the issues were being overblown. But in fact, she gives credit to the city for the steps that are being taken to address the traffic concerns on Back Road. So this is clearly a very difficult situation, but I think that this council, as well as the Regional District Sewage Commission, have given serious consideration to what can be done, have done what they can. And we're all looking forward to the project being over. The issues on Back Road will remain. We've asked the province to take some steps to address those through enforcement and such. But you know, the short of closing Back Road, which nobody in a position of responsibility thought was a good idea, we've done all we can, and I think that we've given serious consideration to this issue, as we should have. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Hilling. I appreciate it, and I think maybe also there might have been some assumptions that, you know, if changes need to be made over concerns, and one of the things that's mentioned in the letter is around the signage, where it's because it's so late in the project and it's going to take time. Whereas next time it'd be like, well, if you get those approvals ahead of time, or you at least have those discussions so that you're ready to take action if necessary. And I think, again, we're far enough into the project now, and maybe not to put you on the spot, but if there is sort of, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, when the road and traffic might be back to normal. Sort of put you on spot there.
Thanks, Mayor. So the issue of signage was in fact canvassed quite extensively at the Sewage Commission meeting. Just as one example, I'd asked the question about the potential placement of a directional sign on Ryan Road, similar to what we see at the corner of the Island Highway, Cliff Avenue, and the 17th Street Bridge. And it was explained that those signs go up where there's a directional change that is going to be happening. And that's not what was the case at the corner of Back Road. The detour sign clearly was pointing up the hill, which was the intended detour direction. So that was just one example of where the issue of signage was addressed. But to answer your primary question, the project is proceeding on time and on budget, and we expect that Back Road traffic and Dyke Road, Comox Road traffic will be back to normal in early November.
Awesome. Appreciate that. And thanks for your responses. And I know that there is a sign that does say go straight ahead. It's just, I think the size of it, next time we might, you know, get it supersized or something. So it's a little bit bigger than what it is. But again, I think we're you know, for better or worse, we're moving through it. And given all of the challenges that are happening, I just really appreciate all the staff that are out there, and really just want to acknowledge the fact that there are some frustrations out there, and just to remind people not to take those frustrations out on the staff and the people who are working out there who have families and stuff. So with that, I mean, it is a letter for receipt, so I'll just receive that unanimously for council. And then we have a letter from the Honorable Kristen Boyle, Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs, on the housing target order for the city of Courtenay. All right, thanks for that. Any questions or comments regarding that, Mr. Garbett?
Through the mayor to council. So now that we have official confirmation of the housing targets, that information has been communicated out to the community and specifically to our development community around those implications. And that information has now formed part of our conversations that and support materials for meetings that the mayor is having. My apologies, having with senior elected officials from the provincial and federal government. So we now know our trajectory. We're confident that we'll be able to meet those targets. And I would say that the development community is ready and willing to take up the mantle to continue to provide housing as we have over the last 6 years.
Fantastic. Appreciate that. And again, as a letter for receipt, it's something that has been legislated in our staff. Again, just kudos for working with the province. And again, I think we're 68% of the way to completing the target for 2026. So we're well on our way. And again, it's really a Team Courtney effort to make that happen. So moving on to management reports. We have the management reports today. And maybe if we want to, I know in the past we've kind of gone through one by one. Do we want to just start from the top with the financial services? If there's any questions. Okay, we'll proceed. Councillor Moore.
Yeah, I was just curious about the permissive tax exemption. It says it will be ready to be presented in September. But it's saying it's only 50% complete. So I'm just curious about what that means if it's only a few weeks away from coming to us.
One of the really big pieces about permissive tax is council's direction. So we collect all the information and then bring it to council. I find these percentages sometimes hard to fill out because like technically it's 0% done because council hasn't approved it.
So you're saying that it's basic, it's pretty much ready to go. It just needs to come to
Yeah,
council.
September 17th, you'll see the regular permissive tax exemption in the bylaws. My goal is to bring an update to the policy or policy option updates for the September 10th council meeting. Some of those items we might be able to roll directly in. Others will likely take longer to implement.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for the question, Councillor Moore. Appreciate it. Any other questions on financial management report? Seeing none, we'll move on to fire department. Well, I think we've received them all. So, okay. Is that okay? Yeah, because they're all one management report. Councillor Hillian.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm just curious why there's no reference to the East Courtney Fire Hall in the fire department report.
Oh, is it complete already? Chief McDonald.
Through the mayor to Councillor Hillian, I believe that's actually in the engineering one or IESS. It wouldn't be captured in my management report.
You're not building it? Sorry for that. Thanks for the good answer there. Much appreciated. And again, thanks to taking council on a tour down to Dashwood to check out their fire department and what the potentials are. So much appreciated. Seeing that no other questions for fire department, I'll move on to operational services. Any operational services questions? And Councillor Hillian again.
I think somebody really needs to have one so that our stand-in for Mr. Shaw can be put on the spot tonight.
I guess on a journey.
But I do not have one. I just want to take this opportunity to thank our operational services people for the job that they continue to do for the city in many ways. Thanks.
Thanks very much. And the last report we have is development services. Are there any questions on development services? We've got to give Pat a chance to talk today. So, all right, Mr. Garbett, maybe do you want to do a quick introduction.
Yeah,
on
thank you.
Peter
Thank you,
here.
Mr. Mayor. This seems like an opportunity just to introduce, wanted to say, let council know and meet Patricia Maloney, who has come forward, has been a consultant that's been helping the Development Services Department with a variety of applications and application processes. And Mr. Dickinson had admirably filled the acting director chair for a couple of weeks, but that's not his overall focus. And so Pat is kindly assisted us, and while our director's on leave, she's going to help us, and has provided a really broad experience, private public sector, extremely long history with our planning profession, and we're just really happy that she's here. Some key work that she's been doing is engaging on the active files with Crown Isle. And moving forward on those, and we can report that that's going very well from our perspective, and we anticipate those developments proceeding per their commentary to council. So we'll have some updates, I think, soon on some status there as well.
All right, thanks, and welcome again, Pat. And I mean, I get to talk to you on a somewhat regular basis, but thanks again for stepping in and helping get stuff done here. It's much appreciated. With that, we'll take a vote on receiving the collection and management reports. All those in favor? Any opposed? And motion carries. And next, we'll move into bylaws for adoption. So that'll be 9.1.1 subdivision and development servicing. Sorry, I didn't read it off. Moved by Councillor Frisch. And yeah, and seconded. Excellent. And are there any questions or comments on the bylaw? Seeing no questions or comments, all those in favor? And motion carries. With that, we'll move into council reports, starting with Councillor Cole Hamilton, Councillor Frisch, Councillor Hillian, Councillor Jilliker is not here, Councillor McCollum, Councillor Moore. And I'll just mention a few things, although we haven't met for a few weeks. This last weekend was quite exciting with the opening or groundbreaking, I should say, of McPhee Meadows, which was quite exciting. And on the weekend, we rose the pride flag at City Hall, and there was also the parade. And then we had Pulse in the Plaza at downtown Courtenay, which is extremely well attended. The Fall Fair, the Paleo Conference, which was mentioned before, and then in our recent past, the what was it? Yana bike ride as well. So which raised again over $100,000 for families in our community that are taking their children out of town for medical appointments. So with that, we got an in-camera resolution. All right, and all those in favor? Motion carries, and we will move in camera.